On July 13, 1978, a Soviet physicist leaned into a beamline to check a malfunction. A high-energy proton beam passed straight through his skull. He saw a flash brighter than 1,000 suns and felt no pain. Doctors expected him to die within days. He didn't. Before that afternoon, 36-year-old Anatoli Petrovich Bugorski was a senior researcher at the Institute for High-Energy Physics in Prodvino. Prodvino was a Soviet science town built specifically to study nuclear physics. At its heart sat the U-70 proton synchrotron. Commissioned in 1967, this massive accelerator was among the most powerful on Earth, designed to accelerate protons around a 1.5-kilometer ring at 76 billion electron volts. Bugorski worked as a hands-on experimentalist. His daily tasks required him to step inside the accelerator tunnel to calibrate detectors, align heavy electromagnets, and resolve hardware glitches on the spot. In a highly competitive research environment that valued speed and personal initiative, scientists sometimes viewed rigid safety protocols as unnecessary delays. Bugorski was driven by a desire to keep the experiments running smoothly. Trusting his own ability to fix delicate gear, he preferred direct, practical solutions over waiting for bureaucratic clearance. An accelerator functions by using powerful electric fields to repeatedly propel charged particles to incredibly high velocities. In the U-70, these particles are protons, the tiny, positively charged building blocks found inside an atomic nucleus. The machine drives these protons to an energy level of 76 giga-electron volts, a scale where they travel at nearly the speed of light. As these protons travel around the 1.5-kilometer ring, massive electromagnets bend, steer, and focus the stream, compressing the particles into a tight, highly concentrated path only a few millimeters wide. A beamline like this is built to keep these subatomic particles strictly on schedule, not to accommodate a human head. When these high-energy protons travel, they do not create a room-filling cloud of radiation or a sudden explosion. Instead, they follow a narrow, disciplined route. As the protons collide with matter, they cause ionization, a process where fast-moving particles knock electrons out of stable atoms, changing tissue chemistry along their path. Because the energy is deposited within a tiny corridor, the radiation damage is strictly localized. This is fundamentally different from a whole-body exposure, which distributes ionizing energy across multiple essential organ systems at once, crippling the digestive and blood-forming systems. In a focused beam, the immense hazard comes from the extreme concentration of energy within a microscopic path, leaving the surrounding areas virtually untouched. On the late afternoon of July 13, 1978, a detector in the experimental hall stopped responding to beam signals. Bugorski decided to troubleshoot the hardware himself. Standard procedure required calling the control room to request a beam shutdown, but on this day, a chain of mundane failures overrode the system's defenses. First, a red warning light above the access door, meant to glow when the beam was live, had quietly burned out. Second, the safety interlock, designed to automatically kill the accelerator the moment anyone opened the door, was either disabled or bypassed, likely during earlier troubleshooting. Because the Soviet government never released a complete official institutional accident report, the exact mechanical cause of this failure remains reconstructed from later personal accounts rather than public records. Believing the path was safe, Bugorski bypassed the bureaucratic delay of a formal shutdown. He unlocked the door, stepped into the concrete tunnel, and leaned directly over the malfunctioning equipment to find the glitch. He positioned his face right in line with the narrow trajectory of the vacuum pipe, unaware that 76 billion electron volts of protons were still surging through the channel. The proton beam struck. It entered the back of Bugorski's head, sliced through his brain, and exited near the left side of his nose. At that exact microsecond, he witnessed a blinding flash. He later described it as brighter than 1,000 suns, yet he felt absolutely no pain. There was no sound, no smell, and no physical impact. Because the protons were traveling so close to the speed of light, the entire event was over before its seriousness could be seen. He remained completely conscious, gathered his tools, and finished his log entry. To the naked eye, nothing had changed. In reality, the high-energy particles had left a microscopic, highly destructive channel through his skull. Accounts vary on how quickly he received medical help. Some records suggest he was rushed to a clinic immediately, while others indicate he went home first, only seeking help when his physical symptoms became impossible to ignore. By the next day, the left side of his face had swollen dramatically, and visible skin damage began to appear at the entry and exit wounds. While an ordinary, bright flash in a dark room might be a simple nuisance, this particular flash was the visual signature of a massive radiation dose. The swelling and visible damage finally forced him to seek specialized medical attention, setting off a race to save his life. At Moscow's specialized Hospital Number 6, radiation physicians prepared for the worst, believing the massive exposure would inevitably end Bugorski's life. Yet, as days turned into weeks, his clinical progression defied expectations. Because the proton beam was incredibly narrow, Bugorski did not suffer from ordinary whole-body radiation sickness. His bone marrow and internal organs remained completely healthy. Instead, the destruction was intensely localized, confined entirely to the path of the beam. The neurological toll, however, was permanent. The nerves on the left side of his face were destroyed, leaving that half of his face completely paralyzed and frozen in time. He lost all hearing in his left ear, replaced by a constant, high-frequency ringing, and years later, the scar tissue in his brain began triggering regular seizures. This survival comes down to a fundamental distinction in how radiation interacts with tissue. Bugorski escaped systemic sickness because the proton beam concentrated its destructive energy within a single millimeter-wide corridor. His bone marrow and vital organ systems remained untouched outside this narrow path. The extreme energy of the 76 giga-electron-volt beam also worked in his favor. In cancer therapy, doctors use lower energy protons designed to slow down and deposit their maximum energy, a point called the Bragg peak, directly inside a tumor. But Bugorski's beam was so powerful that its maximum energy deposition point lay meters past his head. The particles simply punched through, leaving fast secondary particles to generate a brilliant flash of Cherenkov light. His survival remains a highly specific puzzle of narrow geometry, brief exposure, and anatomical luck, rather than any established safe threshold for radiation. Today, as we build ever more powerful accelerators, Bugorski remains a living reminder of physics' unpredictable edge. Science constantly pushes boundaries, but we are always one broken warning light away from catastrophe. Subscribe for more incredible stories.